Good to see you.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Valerie.
It's a pleasure welcoming you to the talk on a new topic that was prompted by some of you, how we converse or do not converse, or what we call the dialogue of the deaf. That's the talk of today. Someone has a microphone on and it creates some background sound. As always, this conversation is going to be from you, by you, and with you. And I'm going to leave the floor to Philippe to introduce the discussion and to say a few words about why we chose the dialogue of the deaf as our topic for tonight.
Hello, everyone. Great to see you again on board and tuned with us on this second or first Friday of the month. Dialogue of the deaf is a subject that has been suggested by some of you guys, and we thought it was very interesting for us because it's at the heart of the work we are doing with Savoir-Relier. And but also we thought it was a very strong question and a very strong challenge that we have today. So just give me give you a couple of elements of context before we start the conversation and try to define what we would expect from this conversation, this dialogue, if we may call it like that. Now, dialogue of the deaf, we've all been in this situation before, personally, in the business, the feeling of not being understood, the feeling to talk to a wall, and those frustrations of not being able to make a point, but also sometimes conversation that getting nowhere. We seem that everybody's going to stand by their ideas and opinions, and then nobody seems to be able to unlock the real dialogue and the constructive discussion that we can have. Now, so that's been for a long time, for centuries. What is actually might be different now is probably the power of information that we are living in our days, and the power of words in our environment, right? Especially with the COVID and the lockdown, and we've been facing the situation where we couldn't discuss with people unless we do that online, but we've been submitted by media, the words, lectures, discussion words, mainly words, because we couldn't go on the ground and see the things in real. And when we found interesting these days is that the words seem to be, in a way, taking over the world, if I may say, which means that words are everywhere, but there's a lot of confusion between the nature of those words. We try to have explanation about things. Scientists bring some explanation to the world and how it works and what maybe it will work in the future, sort of expertise, scientific knowledge. But at the same time, we have a lot of things coming in, like opinions, beliefs, rumors that are actually making a lot of noise in the system. And at some point, we don't make the difference between those data, scientific expertise, rumors, opinion, everything is kind of mixed up, and we don't know what sort of truth can we get out of it. So for us individuals, citizens, it's kind of very, very difficult to make some kind of order in this and try to make sense of it. So the dialogue of the deaf is probably more critical these days because the words are everywhere, and therefore they let up discussion. But when you see where discussion take place, most of the time it's going to be games, it's going to be a program on TV where you have people fighting against each other, politicians, when you see media inviting two people who are from extreme ideas, differently, completely fall apart in terms of the political, it's clearly a game. It's not really have a constructive discussion to be more clever after the dialogue. So we are invaded with that, and we don't know how to make sense of it, right? So the subject of today is to try to share that and to share experience or situation where you've been facing this sort of dialogue of the deaf. And either because you've been the victim of it, frustration of not being heard, or frustration of, not getting anywhere, or because you've tried and maybe you succeeded in trying to have a discussion that became more constructive. So getting out of the spiral and try to have a sort of proper, constructive, and real productive conversation. And that's what we'd like you to share with us and have a kind of idea of what are the lights at the end of the tunnel on this this picture that I drawn. It is kind of very, very dark, I may say, but I'm sure by the end of this half hour, we'll get some indication and hints about how to get out of it. So the floor is yours, and we would be more welcome to hear from you guys.
Yeah, we'd like to hear actually some moments where you were stuck in a situation of conversation or dialogue where there was this silence or stop or such disagreement that was so uncomfortable. Also focusing on emotions. What are the kinds of emotions that you feel when this type of situation happens? How do you react? What you put together and how do you come out of it? You know, how we try to work on coming out of situations, coming out of crisis, and what are the resources that you pull in order to survive and to come out of such situations when there is no conversation anymore. So please share moments, situations, experiences that you've had around this topic, and then we'll carry on discussing. But tell us stories. Who wants to start? There's always a moment of silence when, yes.
I would like to start.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi everyone. So, I had this moment wherein I thought that my words, my expectations, and my suggestions are they are just throwing to the wall and hitting the wall, and they are not listened to. And this experience was with the management, because there were projects in which the management used to take over the control, wherein we were the guardians of the project as a project controller and project manager. And then management used to go to the customer and they used to take a decision, and they used to we had to bind by that decision. And we always told that we are the people who are the custodians of the project, and we know how, because we are working on that, we are executing the project, so we know how good the project is and how to deal with the customer. And if you are going without any hard substantiative facts, and you are taking the decisions every time, then it does not do any good to the project. But the management never heard. And I used to feel so frustrated. I'm working, I'm trying to negotiate the claim very hard, and the management is going at, I mean, the customer directly approaches the management, and because they are a customer, management goes and agrees. So all my hard work which I have done for a certain period of time to negotiate the claim, and being hard with the customer, being the bad boy in front of the customer, is going to the vain. So this is the situation in which I felt that I was hitting the wall and my words were going to the death.
Mm-hmm.
So what did I do?
Thank you very much for sharing, Manan. Is there another story that we'd like to hear, 2 or 3 stories, and then we will have some comments? Any other story? Thank you for sharing, Manan.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Anyone else has a story that has similar or different reactions in a situation? I will react to Manan's point about the image of the wall, hitting the wall, feeling frustration, talking about feeling like a bad boy. That's what you said. So that's the good and bad, the notion of judgment upon you when you're in this type of situation. So anybody has another story where you have experienced similar context?
probably I can share my story.
Yes.
Hello,
Yes.
everyone.
Hi.
I've just came from from another country because I've been there for an assignment, and I had a quite interesting situation that I came there with my knowledge and basically the company bought me just to improve some stuff concerning marketing. And when I came with all my knowledge and with everything that I have working for international companies, I started to share all those knowledge with them, and I found out that they don't need it. It was very public situation for me, frankly speaking. I tried to deliver, I tried to set up these things, and the company just simply say yes and did nothing. So it was a kind like, and you don't know how to behave because they're very nice, they're very kind, they behave like they really respect what you say, they acknowledge that you said this to them, but there is no action, there is no proper answer, and there is yes and no and nothing else. So and frankly speaking, I came to CEO and to ask him, could you kindly explain me what I did wrong? Did I use a wrong language? Probably you don't understand something which I said. Probably it's too sophisticated. Do I need to explain it in the most simple way? And he said, no, you did everything great. Everything is super, very nice words, very nice actions that you propose, but we will keep as it is. So that, that was my quite funny situation. And frankly speaking, I still don't know what was wrong, and I don't know what was my action, what I supposed to do differently, just to persuade them that the action which I proposed to them might bring them to completely new level and to improve the profitability of the company, but they didn't take it, and that's my situation.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much. Graziella, you had you put a heart on. So do you have something to say?
I prefer not to talk because it's I'm a little bit I can't speak now because
Okay.
I'm remembering situation where we are really I have tears, so I'm in tears now, so I
Oh,
can't
wow.
speak.
Okay, so big emotions
Thank you so
thinking about
much.
situations like this.
Yes, it was a situation where I was the deaf, so I it was really hard, and I was really frustrated because I couldn't hear my colleagues because and I was frustrated because I couldn't explain myself about the situation, and that's I can't explain more. So I started looking myself through their eyes, how they are looking. So silence has a power, it's silence is powerful. So, and I started my introspection journey. It was, yes, the beginning of my introspection journey, and how to see ourselves through others' eyes. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Graziella. And Chris has been shared in writing. He said, I think we have all been the deaf at some point. And yes, indeed, what I find quite powerful in what we are sharing right now is that indeed there are two sides. There's the deaf, and there's the one that is the victim, or if it's maybe too big a word, but definitely there is an impact that creates frustration, that creates a misunderstanding, that creates lots of emotions, to the point that you may have tears when you realize which side you're on and what's going on. The next point, and what we work on with the Savoir-Relier, is definitely to help you open your eyes, open your ears, be more vigilant in using your senses, be more able to use and put to use your senses, just like poets do. Poets are very sensitive and sensible in their relationship to the world, because they are able to use all of the senses at once. They're able to use their eyes to see deeply. They use their ears to hear all the sounds, and those abilities that some of us have more or less are not always put to use in certain situations, particularly when the situation is blurred, when there is something happening emotionally, for example, or both the first two stories that were shared, there was a question of knowledge. Well, I knew this, but I couldn't make myself understood. And the knowledge that you have, that you bring to the table, is something, but how you make it clear and understood, and that there is an ability for everyone to interact and to have an understanding of one another. So putting your senses to use and creating that awareness that Graziella just mentioned, that now that you're aware, you go into more introspection about when is it that you're really open and listening and capable of adapting your understanding to the other, but at the same time sharing your own views and ideas. And that's where it's difficult to balance your own point of view, your own ideas, without affecting the other person in such a way that there is no listening anymore. And as you said, yes, silence is a powerful element of exchange and of dialogue as well. So thank you for sharing, Graziella, as well. Chris, you want to pursue on what you said, that we've all been deaf? Have you been deaf at some point?
Many times, I'm sure, yes. I don't have any specific examples, but I have a couple of pieces of advice I'd like to share. There's a great book called Getting to Yes. And in Getting to Yes, the author proposes that you should speak first to understand and then to be understood. And so he said, when you're having one of these difficult conversations, listen to the other person and make sure you fully understand their point of view before you try to interject your point of view on them. Otherwise, it's just hitting the wall, because they're going to be talking and you're going to be talking, and it's not going to work. And then for Graziella, one of the things I try to do is I always try to go into one of the conversations that I know is going to be difficult with an open mind, and try not to make any assumptions about the other person's intention. And that's helped me go in not being the deaf person, although it doesn't work 100% of the time. But
yes, definitely. The one thing that you just said, Chris, that is also a very big importance for us in creating the context for the duo, this exchange where you open to somebody else, someone you know or someone you don't know, but the mindset that you're in this form of interaction, of exchange, is that you go in with no intention, no expectation, no judgment. Those three aspects of an exchange create the conditions for a more open dialogue, because the preconceived ideas or the prejudices that you may have about the other are put aside, and then you can really focus on the here and now, the moment of exchange, and giving and receiving at the same time through that exchange, whatever may happen, without anticipating what may happen and without expecting anything from the other. This is not usual, because in real life, it's very uncommon to have an exchange with someone and you don't have anything in your head or in your mind before going in. But forcing yourself into that mindset is, we find, very helpful in enriching conversations between two human beings who discover one another, and through this exchange also discover themselves. So that's why we feel that the duo and the practice of the duo with this mindset is very helpful in creating an environment where you can construct something, even if the debate is still based on oppositions, on confrontations, on disagreements, because agreeing or not agreeing is not the point. It's just the value of the exchange that makes you grow in the end. So that's really the mindset that we advocate in the duo and in the Savoir-Relier approach.
And one thing I would like to add to this is that, of course, we we may be in that mindset ourselves, but the person in front of us may have different intention and may not have this, the wiseness of us addressing a conversation in that way. But what we found out is that when you take this posture of listening, opening, no expectation, really no assumption, as Chris said, which is very, very important. Don't assume what the person is going to say because of X, Y, Z. But if you start having this posture, the person in front of you will change its mindset. That will change automatically the posture of the conversation. But if you start getting into some kind of opinion or argument, then the escalation starts and it will not stop. Therefore, the starting point, you as an individual can have an impact on the conversation of the two persons. And that's really important for our confidence to be able to influence a conversation or a dialogue in the right direction.
Freedom of intention. I see Gerardo is making a comment. Freedom of intention is something that helps to avoid the trap of illusion of control. Yeah. How do you control a conversation or try to dominate a conversation versus being open to let things come through? Yeah.
I believe that everyone does that almost all the time, because we have like an obsession with the control. It's something that, for example, I was hearing one of the experiences related to try to sell something or try to provide a service. And it's something that in an illusion that we have is, if I explain everything that is the solution that can provide, the other one is gonna choose it. He's gonna pick that and take it for them. And it's not necessarily like that, because it's everyone has different needs, and that needs has different, may have differences of solution, different type of solution. So I really believe that any discussion has the characteristics of a communication that could be, maybe we try to inform, maybe we try to entertain, maybe we try to provide some kind of influence to the other one. And that is something that is related to control. So I really remember some crafters in a way that has that freedom of intention, the idea of doing something, but doing it for the art of doing it, not for trying to achieve a certain goal, you know. Yeah. And I understand that could help. I really believe that I'm sick of control. I don't think that I'm in the increased position that most of the time we can be know the deaf. It's very possible that we be in the deaf in much of the time.
Okay.
Just what I wanted to say, Valerie, is in just the title of your seminar, you're talking about the dialogue of the deaf. In a way, the onus is on the person who receives the message. In a way, sometimes the issue is the person that actually sends the message. And to be honest, I've been on the receiving end very recently of an issue of someone skewing very much of a message, making me deaf to the message that was actually the true message. And I think there's that piece of the advice as well. So I think there's two sides of this. I think we are very much in control of when we receive the message and what we do with it. But at the same time, do we know exactly what the message at the beginning is, and what the intention of the person that sends the message? And sometimes it is a little bit skewed, and it can be actually tricky to understand exactly what the person means. So I think in your message, it's all about what we can do in our own control. We know it's a little bit like stress and everything, what's in our parameter of control, which is great. We deal with this, but then what's outside of it, we can't necessarily control it. And what people send us as skewed messages might be slightly different. So we might be deaf sometimes because we don't get the message that people are trying to send us in a very strange way,
Yeah.
which
One
still
thing
sadly happens.
Thank you, Valérie. One thing that we work on, and a tool that we use a lot in helping improving your interaction and your dialogues, because in a dialogue it's a back and forth, so there are at least two people involved. The ladder of inference that we refer to very, very often, this ability of helping each other come down the ladder and trying to reconstruct where your feedback comes from, what you're saying, what is your thinking process, what are your hypotheses when you're saying this, what is the context of what you're saying, why do you see what you see when I see something else. We have this painting exercise where you see a beautiful painting, and here it's a Monet painting, and some people see a sunset and some people see a sunrise. And if you're able to explain how and why you see what you see, then you start understanding one another better. And that's the coming down the ladder, making your thinking process more explicit, telling where you're coming from, and helping the other also explain where you're coming from. That's where dialogue really starts breaking down and rebuilding. So it's this kind of movement of up and down and helping one another in the process. But to achieve this requires some practice. It requires improving your capacity to observe, improving your open-mindedness, accepting that, letting the other person in, and opening those doors rather than closing them. And it's that process that is not always natural. It's something that you need to, when you do on a regular basis, it becomes easier, but it's sometimes so much easier to be on top of your ladder. It's just
absolutely, and that's why, Valerie, I think it will be less of a dialogue of the deaf if everybody is on the same level of the ladder. So I think it's about getting back to the level of the ladder, knowing exactly what the objectives are, and then it will be less of a dialogue of the deaf. That was just my kind of defense input.
Yeah.
Theodore,
you want to say something? We have just 2 minutes left. We know half an hour is always too short, but that's all.
I will conduct an experiment with you, and I will see whether you are deaf. I will introduce something different to what you have said, which is the cognitive and historical history of deafness. From the point of view of cognitive studies, the theory of relevance, which has studied precisely this problem, shows that it is very difficult to enter into another person's head, and that it requires great effort on the part of the receiver to understand what is going on in the person who's speaking to them. And most people do not put sufficient effort into translating. Secondly, the deafness is, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, the deafness is a physical fact. That is to say, we are all trying to preserve ourselves. We have our ideas. We don't want these ideas to be destroyed. We have to resist them. The natural thing is like to resist a poison which is being given to you, resisting food that you don't like. Of course you don't like it because you don't know it. And so this fight against novelty is very basic. And so when you're saying become a poet, well, that is one way of moving away from reality, seeing things which are not there, but which can be imagined. And that may help, but it can also mislead into thinking that you agree. So I'm interested by the examples you were given of trying to ultimately in business to get your opinion accepted by somebody who has totally different experience. And therefore my answer is you've got to discover what goes on in the person's head, in the head of the person you're trying to talk to. And if you don't know this person, you're lost. And you have to find some little way of linking up with some prejudice of his. So you get onto his prejudice and you ride the prejudice like a horse, and then perhaps he will see it, but he will not understand you. And I can say that as an author, I have never been understood. And people always change what I say in order to accommodate it to their own prejudices. And so you're trying to find something impossible.
Thank you, Theodore. Very enlightening. We'll have to talk again about the poets because they don't just imagine, they also feel physically that, you know, way of seeing, and that extra vision, and not just vision like an ideal, but vision like a hypersensitivity to nature and to the world around them. So that's another discussion that we'll have for sure.
I sent you an email, and I hope, I cannot find your email because you obviously didn't get it. So perhaps if you know my email, will you write to me so that I can speak to you?
Definitely, we'll do that. It's 7:02, so we're coming to the end of our conversation this month. Not everybody had a chance to talk. Very important. Camila and Camille keep reminding you that we can carry on outside of these half-hour moments of gathering, and there are places where you can talk, that you can write, you can keep on exchanging. We have LinkedIn, we have Facebook, we have all those networks where we can engage in more discussions. We would like to encourage you to use those media to keep on the relationship that we're building through those talks and through those discussions that we have. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Stefan, and goodbye, and see you again in a month. We'll let you know what our next topic is going to be. And we look forward to being in touch and growing this community of sharing and wanting to improve our relationships and our relational competence through the Savoir-Relier, but also through our connections, very simply our connections. Thank you for being with us and joining this evening or this morning for those of you who are in the East Coast or somewhere in the US. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you, everyone.
Bye-bye.